us are here today because we truly care about our national parks and our public lands, and I hope that all of us here really are here also because we want to ensure that these treasures are fully supported and receive the budgets and the attention that they deserve. You know, national parks have provided the country with an abundance of benefits, from spiritual retreat to becoming vital economic engines of rural America. For example, I'm going to give two small quotes that exemplifies this. One that says that everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and give strength to body and soul alike. That was John Muir in 1912. And then more recently, from the governor of Utah, Governor Gary Herbert, Utah's national parks are a backbone of many rural economies, and hardworking Utahns are paying a heavy price for this shutdown. In order to put these numbers, or to put numbers on these sustainable economic benefits, let's talk about one park that's in my district, not in my district, in my state, and that's in Yosemite. In 2011, there were over 3 million, actually almost 4 million recreational visits to Yosemite, and those visitors spent a cumulative $379 million, money that was injected into the local economy and supported local jobs. We know that overall in 2011, over $30 billion was economic activity. And so I'm really glad to hear that national parks are being recognized and applauded by many members of Congress for the truly renewable and sustainable benefits that they provide Americans. So when I saw the heading today about as difficult as possible, and I imagine we would be talking about how do we look to better support the national parks by stopping their budget slide and working on essential maintenance backlogs. For me and many of my constituents, as difficult as possible really describes Congress's treatment of national parks and public lands over the past 3 years. Since the 112th Congress, National Park Service their budget's been cut by 13%. At the same time, the NPS has not been able to handle almost $11.5 billion in park maintenance backlog. And because of decreasing budgets, they're not able to, they've been forced to cut seasonal employees. We've heard about furloughing today. Educational programs have been canceled. They've limited environmental monitoring. You know, I'm just going to read and then ask a question from a letter from over 300 businesses affected by these irresponsible cuts over the last few years to the National Park Service. Dear Mr. President and members of Congress, we own, operate, and support the restaurants, shops, equipment, rentals, motels, gas stations, and other small businesses that provide services to national parks visitors. Our business and livelihood and that of our employer and their families depend on keeping the national parks open and in good condition. Watching the political jockeying in Washington from afar, frankly, we are worried about the impact to our business. Simply put, even more cuts to national park budgets would be penny-wise and pound-foolish. Our families and our communities and our national economy will suffer without much real fiscal benefit to the federal budget. Mr. Chairman, I ask for unanimous consent to place this letter into the record.
Without objection, it will be part of the record.
So, if we want to find out how we can productively spend our time on investigating, the question that I have to you first is to Director Jarvis. Do you think I'm right, Director Jarvis, that in order to ensure public safety at our national parks and manage the sites during the shutdown of the federal government, that you've had to close sites? I think you've already touched on this. You've had to close sites due to limited staff. Is it not true that these closures are not site-specific or aimed at any individual group? Or
they are not aimed at any individual or group. They are not political. They are a part of our responsibility to protect these places for future generations. They are a consequence in the lapse of appropriations.
Thank you. And the next question is, we know the Park Service opposes the piecemeal approach to opening national parks. Do you think this piecemeal approach is appropriate for any other of our agencies? Should the Department of Defense only open Army bases, but not Navy bases, for instance? Should FDA only inspect dairy products, but not meat products?
I believe that the entire federal government should be funded. I believe that this piecemeal approach that we have taken within the national park system to open the parks where the states have been able to enter into agreements leaves a lot of parks closed.
And finally, have the cuts made under sequestration limited budget flexibility within the Park Service?
Absolutely. They were across the board at every budgetary item, so they impacted every park in the system.
Thank you, and I yield back my time.
Time of the gentleman has expired.